What if I told you that starting February 1 stone, millions of Americans receiving SSI and SSDI benefits could see a life-changing $6,350 stimulus payment hitting their bank accounts? Sounds too good to be true, right? Well, that's exactly what's being reported as part of Trump's first major policy announcement for February. But how did this come about? Who qualifies for these payments? And what does this mean for the economy and the millions of Americans who rely on these benefits to make ends meet? Stick around, because we're diving deep into everything you need to know about this groundbreaking policy. But before we get into the details, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on the latest updates on this and other breaking news. Let's get started. The announcement of a $6,350 stimulus payment for SSI and SSDI recipients has sent shockwaves across the nation, sparking both excitement and skepticism. For those who may not know, SSI, Supplemental Security Income, and SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance, are federal programs designed to provide financial assistance to individuals with disabilities, as well as low-income seniors and others who are unable to work. These programs are lifelines for millions of Americans, and the idea of a one-time payment of this magnitude is nothing short of revolutionary. But where did this proposal come from, and why now? According to reports, this policy is part of a broader effort to address the economic challenges faced by vulnerable populations, particularly in the wake of rising inflation and the lingering effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. The timing of this announcement is crucial, as many Americans are still struggling to recover from the financial setbacks of the past few years. The pandemic exposed deep cracks in the nation's social safety net, and this stimulus payment is seen as a way to provide immediate relief to those who have been hit the hardest. But let's break this down further. How exactly will this $6,350 stimulus payment work? The policy states that eligible SSI and SSDI recipients will automatically receive the payment starting February 1 stone, with no need to apply or take any additional steps. This is a significant departure from previous stimulus programs, which often required individuals to navigate complex application processes or meet specific criteria. The goal here is to make the process as seamless as possible, ensuring that those who need the money the most can access it without unnecessary hurdles. However, this raises an important question: how is the government funding such a massive payout? While details are still emerging, early reports suggest that the funds will be drawn from a combination of federal reserves and reallocated budget resources. Critics have already begun to voice concerns about the long-term implications of this decision, particularly in terms of national debt and inflation. But proponents argue that the immediate relief provided to millions of Americans outweighs these potential risks. After all, the economic stability of vulnerable populations is not just a moral imperative but also a key factor in the overall health of the economy. Now, let's talk about who exactly stands to benefit from this policy. As mentioned earlier, the payment is targeted at SSI and SSDI recipients, but what does that mean in practical terms? SSI is designed to help low-income individuals who are aged, blind, or disabled, while SSDI provides support to workers who have paid into the Social Security system but are no longer able to work due to a disability. Together, these programs serve as a critical safety net for some of the most vulnerable members of society. The $6,350 payment is expected to provide much-needed relief to these individuals, many of whom live on fixed incomes and have been hit hard by rising costs of living. For some, this money could mean the difference between paying rent or facing eviction, putting food on the table or going hungry, or even accessing essential medical care. The impact of this payment cannot be overstated, and it's no wonder that the announcement has been met with widespread enthusiasm. But it's also worth noting that this policy has the potential to address some of the systemic issues that have long plagued these programs, such as the inadequacy of current benefit levels and the lack of flexibility in how recipients can use their funds. But as with any major policy announcement, there are bound to be questions and concerns. One of the most pressing questions is whether this payment will be subject to taxes. While the specifics are still being ironed out, early indications suggest that the stimulus payment will be treated similarly to previous COVID-19 relief checks, meaning it will not be considered taxable income. This is a crucial detail, as it ensures that recipients will be able to keep the full amount of the payment without worrying about a surprise tax bill down the line. Another common concern is whether this payment will affect eligibility for other government benefits, such as Medicaid or SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Again, While the final details are still being worked out, it's likely that the payment will be structured in a way that avoids jeopardizing access to these vital programs. This is a key consideration, as many SSI and SSDI recipients rely on a combination of benefits to meet their basic needs. For example, a single mother with a disability might depend on SSI for her income, Medicaid for her healthcare, and SNAP to feed her children. Any disruption to these benefits could have devastating consequences, which is why policymakers are taking great care to ensure that this stimulus payment complements rather than complicates the existing support system. Of course, no policy is without its critics, and this one is no exception. Some have argued that a one-time payment of $6,350, while helpful, is not enough to address the systemic issues facing SSI and SSDI recipients. They point to the fact that many of these individuals struggle with ongoing financial challenges, from rising healthcare costs to stagnant benefit levels that have failed to keep pace with inflation. Others have raised concerns about the potential for fraud or misuse of funds, particularly given the automatic nature of the payment. While these concerns are valid, it's important to remember that the primary goal of this policy is to provide immediate relief to those who need it most. Whether or not it will be followed by additional measures remains to be seen, but for now, the focus is on getting this money into the hands of recipients as quickly and efficiently as possible. And let's not forget that this policy is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. It's part of a broader conversation about how we, as a society, support our most vulnerable members and ensure that no one is left behind. So, what does this mean for the broader economy? The injection of $6,350 into the pockets of millions of Americans is likely to have a significant impact, particularly at the local level. For small businesses, this could mean a much-needed boost in sales, as recipients use their payments to purchase goods and services. For the housing market, it could provide a lifeline to renters and homeowners who are struggling to keep up with payments. And for the overall economy, it could help stimulate growth and recovery at a time when many are still feeling the effects of the pandemic. Of course, the long-term effects remain to be seen, but there's no denying that this policy has the potential to make a real difference in the lives of millions of Americans. It's also worth considering the ripple effects of this payment. For example, a disabled individual who receives the $6,350 might use it to pay off medical bills, freeing up their monthly income for other expenses. Or a low-income senior might use the money to make much-needed home repairs, improving their quality of life and potentially increasing the value of their property. These are just a few examples of how this payment could have a lasting impact far beyond its initial distribution. As we wrap up this discussion, it's important to remember that policies like this don't exist in a vacuum. They are the result of countless hours of debate, negotiation, and compromise, and they reflect the priorities and values of those in power. Whether you agree with this particular policy or not, it's clear that it has sparked an important conversation about how we, as a society, support our most vulnerable members. And that's something worth paying attention to. If you found this video informative, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. And of course, subscribe to our channel for more in-depth coverage of the latest news and policies that affect your life. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.